I want to start this off by saying this video isn't really a shot at any creator. It's really just me watching a video, reacting to a video, and wanting to state my opinion. All of this video is about a video from this creator, Elliot Sang, and the only part of that video I'm covering is the beginning part. Beginning part is about another YouTuber called Ali, and it goes over Ali's perspective on managing time through his lens. And one of the first issues I had with this video critiquing Ali was Elliot generalizes a lot of Ali's statements. Ali is speaking purely based on his perspective. And as a viewer, because I watched the original video, I never really got the sense of applying everything he says to my own life. You kind of just apply what you can. And just remember that Ali's video is not a general video, and he does have those on how to manage your time. It's how he manages his own time. And you can take whatever you want from that. So I'm just going to play some clips and give my own critique on those clips throughout this video. That should be fair use. I'm not quite sure.
We first get a sense of the issues in the video from the beginning. In the first clip, Ali asserts that we own our time.
This is like a big one. When I first had this realization, my life genuinely changed because I used to think I don't have time to do stuff. And I don't know where I read it, but I came across this probably like a fortune cookie somewhere, which said something like, at any given moment, you are doing what you most want to be doing. And that was a very empowering thing.
I didn't catch this the first time, but he uses the word fundamentally.
Boss, yes, you might have parents telling you what to do, but fundamentally, you are in control of your own time.
And I think that does a lot of heavy lifting here. He still acknowledges fundamentally that we aren't in control of our time completely. We have obligations, we have needs, but ultimately, in between those needs, there is an allowance of choice.
I have three problems with this. My first problem is kind of a linguistic one. It suggests that time is a commodity and that we have ownership over it, where time isn't really a commodity, right? But that gives us a subtle insight into what we mean when we manage time. We own it.
I don't want to sound nitpicky, but time and commodity are one and the same. Time is a commodity. He maybe only saw one definition, or he didn't look it up, but linguistically, time is a commodity. Usually I would overlook something like this, but some of his points kind of piggyback off this idea that even by definition, time is not a commodity, and that it's kind of Ali trying to create a world where that exists.
Problem is that we actually don't own our time. We don't. Not at least in the same way that we own a commodity. Definitely not. And maybe not in other senses either. We don't have unlimited rights to our time. Most of us are workers who we may not own our time in any sense, actually. We portion out our time to address the things that we find important, that we have to find important. A great example of this is when we work. We sell our labor to employers in exchange for money, in exchange for resources. So if we work as a barista somewhere, we sell 8 hours of our day. Now that person owns our time, and they get to decide how we're supposed to use it, or else the contract is broken. And yeah, we kind of own that in the sense that that's something we agree to because we have to, though. It's not because we really decided we want to work. It's because the money that we get is for addressing important issues in our lives, like survival. Most jobs are things that we wouldn't do if...
I want to start this by saying Ali kind of agrees with him. Ali understands that you have other obligations like work.
Boss, yes, you might have parents telling you what to do, but fundamentally, you...
Mostly talking about free time. I still want to argue against this point in assuming Ali doesn't recognize that people work or have other obligations, because I still think there's something fundamentally wrong with this idea. Or to even go even further, because you don't have complete control of a certain aspect of time, you are in no control over your time. What I get from whatever I do is delayed, but I want that thing. Is what I've done to get that thing a choice? And that's essentially what he's arguing. I can get really pedantic or get really nitpicky and say, if you do anything in existence, it's a choice. which is also true, or not true, depending on your idea of determinism. I think Elliot's problem is he's thinking way too short term, and I don't blame him. I think most people think really short term. If I don't really enjoy something, I'm on to the next thing. Or if I don't enjoy something, it's something I don't want. That isn't necessarily true. Ali's example in the video was exercise. If I'm lifting weights, as I'm in the middle of that set, it's probably really painful, and I don't want to be there. I have this goal or idea in the back of my head that all this work is going to accumulate to some kind of body goal, some kind of weightlifting goal, and this is what drives me to put in that work. Ali's point isn't as rigid as Elliot makes it out to be. He understands that you have jobs, you have obligations, and his ideas should be seen as tools if you're stuck in a really bad way of thinking. So if you constantly say, I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that, this might be for you. I don't think Ali's video is something that's trying to indoctrinate you to an idea, but if you keep in mind the title of the original video and you understand who Ali is, all of his arguments, if you want to call it arguments, all of his statements are practical, especially for someone in his position. Lastly, you are in control of your time. I think that is a way better way of thinking of time. I won't let those little finite parts to define your overall choice. And even those finite parts of obligation is a choice. If you don't like working at Popeyes, apply for somewhere else.
My second problem with this video is the delegation tip. So Ali says that one of the best ways to save yourself time is to delegate a task. Now, delegation can come in many different shapes and sizes, but generally he means to employ people. And don't worry, if you've got concerns about, not having enough money to employ people, Ali's got a great response.
The way that I think of it, even when this YouTube channel wasn't successful, was that, what is actually the dollar value of my time? How much is my time actually worth? And when it came to running my business, I decided that, okay, my time is worth £20 an hour or $25 an hour. And that means that anything I'm doing that I don't enjoy, that I can outsource to someone, that I can delegate for less than $25 an hour, I absolutely should do that. And that principle of delegation has encouraged me to get a cleaner, which has been great because now we have someone who comes in to clean the house every other week, which means I don't have to do it myself.
Okay, so that's not a great response. The answer to not having enough money to hire people is simply to imagine that your time is worth an amount of money. Can you negotiate based on this amount of money? Can you give this amount of money to anybody? No. But not only that, if you listen to his example...
Okay, I think he gets Ali's first advice wrong. I don't think Ali was talking about imagining money. I think it's better to think of it this way. Imagine you have, or imagine someone has $1,000 in their bank account. This is real money, not imaginary money, money they have. And they have a goal. And in Ali's case, and in this example's case, it's YouTube. Think about the $1,000 that you really do have and imagine that in hourly form. That hourly form is how much money you are willing to put into this YouTube goal and anything surrounding it. So it could be cleaning, it could be editors, it could be anything. This is what Ali was talking about. It's way easier to think of money in this fashion than in this super macro way. It's really hard to budget that way. It's no different than other forms of budgeting, but this is a hyper-specific one for goals. There's a lot in the second part to argue against. So instead of just playing the whole thing, he puts a lot of these points in one little clip or section. I'm just going to timestamp it, and you need to go to it and watch it. I'm going to still put clips of what he says in this section, but I'm not going to play the whole thing. Okay, so the first thing he does in this little section is he does something I call putting the weight of the world on another man's shoulders. How I explain this is Ali says that he hires people from the Philippines, India, or some, using a website called Fiverr.
People in the Philippines and other poor countries with low standards of living. Yeah, they're surely completely happy about that situation.
This website allows individuals to go on it, be commissioned, not employed, commissioned to do tasks. In this case, it's data entry. And he says it's for $7 an hour. I'm seeing a base pay for like 20, 30. just for the work itself. And just knowing data entry, it shouldn't take longer than an hour, especially if they're using a pre-programmed thing. Whenever you use a website like this, you aren't bearing the responsibility of that country's economy. It's kind of ridiculous to say, or even mention, that they don't like their situation. Of course they don't like their situation. That's why they're on Fiverr earning money. I would like to ask Elliot, what's his solution? Is he trying to take their bread away? Like, does he not want people like Ali using these services and in turn taking away a form of income for these people? And I really don't understand. I don't understand the broader point of this. And it gets way more confusing as this section goes. Elliot goes on to say that, again, Ali is wanting you to think about money you don't have, which is not true. And he also, in turn, talks about the value of man. And I watched it over and over again, and I fully don't even know what he means by this.
And two, by this logic, you're essentially determining that other people's value is lower than yours.
I'm probably going to restate this later in the video, but just because someone earns less than you per hour doesn't mean they're worth less than you. He needs to explain the logic, the leap that's going on here, or the leap that Ali made. He quite literally just wants services. So he's just commissioning people to do things for his convenience because he thinks, and this is not even necessarily true, but he thinks that this is a net positive in his life. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a surplus in money. That is also a misconception. Data entry is not hard. He could have done it himself and probably saved money by doing so. I think this needs to be restated again. Ali's video is not to be taken personally. It's a video on how he manages his time. So if you aren't in a perfect cookie cutter position as he is, then some of the stuff he says won't apply to you. But there's no need to try to apply everything he says to your life. This is not him trying to get you into his religion, any form of idealisms he might have. It's quite literally a video on how he manages his own time. He doesn't have to fully explain his worldview.
Based on logic that you won't explain, and that you should pay them less than the value of your time so as to make surplus value from.
This video isn't an argument, unlike Elliot's video, where he actually does have to explain his worldview and how he comes to any moral conclusion. So how does time and value of time transfer to value of being? So this is what Elliot needs to answer. And I'm just going to frame it in his point of view. So in his point of view, Ali argues that 1, imagine you have money.
The answer to not having enough money to hire people is simply to imagine that your time is worth an amount of money.
2, imagine that money at an hourly rate. 3, pay people equal to or less than that imagined hourly rate.
You should pay them less than the value of your time so as to make surplus value from.
Then 4, by thinking this way, you are valuing people. You are valuing people less than yourself in a humanistic way, not just purely in a monetary way.
Valuation and hire someone. And 2, by this logic, you're essentially determining that other people's value is lower than yours, based on logic that you won't explain.
If he says that his argument the whole time was that the monetary value of people's time were less than his own, then that would make sense. That would be a truthful statement, actually. And I don't see anything morally wrong with that, because that is true. Depending on what job you have, the value of your time is less than someone else's. The value of a surgeon's time, especially when they're doing surgery, is a lot more than the value of a Popeyes worker. This isn't a moral claim. Just because the time, the monetary value of your job is different from someone else's, it doesn't change the intrinsic value of you being a human. And Ali doesn't make this point. Or if he does, Elliot doesn't do a good job of showing it. So this is the final clip I want to show.
And don't get me wrong, it's not wrong to employ people. I employ an editor, a friend of mine, to edit these videos, and without getting into the details of our collaboration, it's certainly not based on the fact that I value my time a certain dollar amount and think that hers is less.
And this is the part of the video I'm more confused about. He goes on to say hiring someone isn't wrong, which I agree with. It's what I've been saying during this whole section. And to my knowledge, this is all Ali is doing. But then he goes on to say what's wrong, or insinuate what's wrong is maybe the mindset in which you hire someone, or the act of making profit via someone else's work in general, or help with work. He goes on to talk about his relationship with his editor. He doesn't go into detail, but he reiterates the same point that he isn't using the editor to make profit. I can think of situations where that's true. If him, the editor, equally shared the channel, that would make sense. Or if the editor made all of the profit on the channel, that would make even more sense. But I am leaning towards both of those not being true, because he says he employs his editor. You wouldn't use language like that if you weren't the one making the most of the profit or controlled the channel. What he needs to establish is what's the difference between what he does and Ali. I can make my own guesses, but essentially they're doing the same thing. Maybe it's because he doesn't use Fiverr, is where he's getting the moral high ground here. But he started a YouTube channel. Maybe in the beginning he started editing his own videos. He became a bit more profitable. He decided that a better use of his time might be just creating more videos, and it'd be easier, whether monetarily or just time-wise, to have someone else edit the videos, which is a very common thing on YouTube. This is essentially what Ali was telling you to do with a delegation. If you don't want to use Fiverr for moral reasons, I still don't fully understand that. He would 100% back this. This kind of relationship is essentially the relationship he probably has with his own editor. Yeah. Unless, again, this is a co-op and they both equally share the channel. He used the term employ, so I'm assuming he employs this person. And they make a lot less than the overall profit per video. All right, well, that's all for me. If you think I got anything wrong, just comment, like, subscribe. I don't know.